Cheers and welcome my friends, I'm Horath and we are playing Tyranny as a noble mage, and this is going to be a bonus episode where I talk with our newest companion Sirin, the Archon of Song, because I really want to know how she ended up out here. She's normally the vassal of the voices of Horath. Why would he send her away? I mean, she's having an Archon as a vassal, just like Tunon has Bled and Mark, is rather important. I wouldn't let them roam free like that, especially if they are a 15-year-old girl. So let's speak with her.
Finder.
Sirin nods to you.
What do you need?
I would know more about you. What do you want to know? Tell me about your homeland. What is there to say? It's a fuzzy memory, hardly worth recalling. I was born in a northern farming village without a name. That's how out of the way they were. A bunch of families ended up settling near each other, and that was my village. It was about 20 miles from Shadow's Rest, and you probably haven't heard of that either. We were farmers, poor and isolated. Nothing about my home or past is worth dwelling on, Fatebinder. I barely remember my father, my mother is dead, and the only thing people ever wanted from me was my song. The girl is powerful. Bring the songbird, we need a blessing. Our crops are withering. What has that bitch done? Her voice falters with the last statement, and she shivers a little. I actually really do feel for her. That poor girl. Nothing in your past is worth dwelling on. Looks to me like you remember something. I suppose when an angry mob that fears you, and what you can do stones your mother to death while she shields you with her body, it sticks with you. What do you remember about your family? The good thing about being taken from home when you're still a child is you can't miss the childhood you've never got. What do you want to know? You were taken from your family. Technically, by the time I was taken, there was no family left to be taken from. But Kyros' forces had gotten word of my talents and decided I was better used taking over the world than helping local farmers. You have no family left. What happened? What do you think? They're dead. My father might not have cared about me, about us. But my mother would never have let anyone take me while she lived. Without anyone to protect me, I was whisked off to Kyros' court. How would you describe your father? Worthless, hopeless, devoid of human emotion? Sometimes I feel like we were complete opposites. He seemed incapable of feeling anything, and I seemed to be nothing but raw emotion. Horath let it slip that my father sold me to Kyros and was responsible for my mother's death. Someone had to egg the crowd on, and someone had to tell Kyros' men where I was. Not that it matters. He's dead, and I'm better off without him. What do you remember about your mother? She's dead, so I don't have much to remember. She loved me, that much I know. But sometimes I wonder if what she felt was love or fear. Fear for me, or of me. And sometimes I don't think there was a difference between the two. My mother loved me when no one else did, when no one else could. The world wanted nothing but my voice. All my mother wanted was my happiness. She was the only person in my life that did. Tell me about your mother's death. No, Fatebinder, I can't. Please, don't make me talk about it. Tell me what happened. I want... Her voice trembles and tears well up in her eyes. I'm sorry, but I need you to tell me what happened. I want to know with whom I'm traveling. If I must. She squeezes her eyes shut, tears drawing tracks through the dust on her cheeks. It's amazing what details stay with you in times like this, what burns itself into your memory. Something insignificant will remain forever, while major details fade, become hazy. We were walking toward our house. The only detail I recall with clarity is the bird. It was blue with red splotches on its wings, and it was so beautiful. It landed on a fence post and was sitting as still as the village had become. My mother was bringing me home from being the songbird. I don't even remember what it was for. Someone's son was sick. Someone's slave had a sore foot. Everything they asked me to do kind of blends together now. Even at 6, I knew what I was doing didn't help most of the people that asked. My power can't control something I have no influence over. I can sing to a broken leg all day, but it's not going to heal any faster. Okay, why did you do it if you knew it wasn't helping? Because everyone thought it was, and they paid us. So I sang. How could we say no? We were poor farmers in the middle of nowhere. But soon everyone knew who I was, and, with my help, my family was comfortable. Go on. We were almost home. I was entranced by the bird, and my mother was talking about dinner when we both noticed how quiet it had gotten. Sirin, she said, looking around when a rock hit the fence with a thunk, sending the bird into the air. I looked at my mother. She was looking over my shoulder at the people gathered behind us. One of them shouted, "That little bitch killed my crops!" It's the last thing I remember being said. Such ugly words from such an ugly man. She leaned over and picked up another rock as he spoke. He leaned over, then shook it in my direction for emphasis. My mother put a hand on my shoulder and stepped in front of me, saying something I don't remember. The bird had landed in the tree above us, and I couldn't stop watching it. Its wings flapped occasionally, almost lazily. In the back of my mind, I knew something was wrong, but I knew my mother would take care of it. Suddenly, people were shouting and throwing things. A group began to rush us, swinging sticks. My mother turned and grabbed me, picking me up, wrapping herself around me. I don't think she even tried to run. She must have known there was no getting out of it. Let's go with the law option. They turned on you that quickly. Why the sudden change? It wasn't sudden. It was controlled. It's not like we left one day with everything fine and came back to violence. My father had been spreading lies about me to the villagers for weeks. He had simply been waiting for my mother and I to leave for a few days so he could speak without fear of my mother finding out. Kyros paid far more than a simple farmer ever could. And even though the long-term profit of taking several small payments would eventually outweigh what Kyros gave my father, he only saw the short-term gain. So he convinced our friends that every bad thing happening in the village was my fault. It wasn't very hard. Everyone knew what I was doing every time I left the village, so they were waiting for us when we returned, ready to deal with the bitch. How do you know it was your father? Horath. It might be a liar full of horrible secrets, but it will tell the truth when it knows it can cause some true pain. Until that day I could pretend my father knew nothing of the horrors that happened. I dreamed he was still alive, searching for me somewhere, begging everyone he saw to help him find his songbird. Yet he was the one that turned everyone else on us. But he's dead now, and I don't have to worry about him anymore. The rest is a muddled mess. I remember blood and screaming, utter chaos. I was lying in the mud with my mother's body on top of me. Even in death, she was trying to protect me. Some of the screaming was me, but the rest was coming from the pile of the people of the village. It looked like there has been a battle. There were bodies everywhere. Some people were bent over others, blood coating their hands, their mouths. Others still held the implements of their own demise in their cold hands. Even in my half-aware, crazed state, I knew I was responsible for the carnage. The song in my crying, sung to them by my terror, turned the mob into my victims. So many dead, so many driven insane by my screams. And even though I know my mother would never have survived, even if I had kept my mouth shut, part of me likes to believe I'd still be on that farm, complaining about picking corn. But even if it hadn't been then, it would have been soon after. Kyros wanted me. And what Kyros wants, Kyros takes. Nothing stands in the way. And that bird, as I lay there in the mud, staring at my mother's lifeless eyes, feeling her weight crush me with each ragged breath I took, it landed on her cheek. The splotches on its wings mirrored the blood splattered on her face. That's the memory that stays with me the most vividly. Man, you can't be such a dick in this game. Enough about the bird. Your mother's dead. Get over it. No, thank you for telling me. I know it wasn't easy for you. No, Fatebinder. I probably needed to tell it, regardless of how you pressured me. She's dead, and my life will never be what it once was. I know this. Let's talk about something else. Tell me about your father's death. Did you kill him? He disappeared after my mother died and I was kidnapped. I didn't hear anything about him for the longest time, so I assumed he had disappeared. And I would never see him again. Then someone brought word that he'd been found. He killed himself, and now he's out of my life. Okay. For someone who's always a lot to say, that was incredibly succinct. Is there more? You're a relentless Fatebinder. Did you ever think maybe there are some things I want to keep for myself? But yes, you're right, there's more to the story. No, I wanna I wanna know it all. I might actually leave her be if I were playing this for myself only. But pretty sure you guys want to know what's going on. When I got word he'd been found, I had him summoned to Kyros' court. I wanted to see the man who had condemned me to the life I was leading. When he arrived, I went to see him privately. I wasn't sure what I would feel. Anger, hatred. I didn't expect apathy. For the first time in my life, I felt nothing. Standing there, staring at the man who ruined my life. Waiting for him to notice me, my heart was dull and disinterested. Then he looked up and smiled. He smiled when he saw me. Can you believe that? He smiled and opened his arms to hug me, and it felt like someone reached into my chest and squeezed my heart, sending hate flooding through my veins. So I sang him a song. I told him how tired he looked, how haggard he seemed. I spoke of the weariness he must feel, the guilt that surely plagued him every day. I asked how he withstood the weight of his betrayal. The burden must be too much to bear. I watched the tears roll down his cheeks as he pulled the dagger from his belt. The sobs that tore from him as he held it before him, thinking about his wife and child, the look of ecstatic relief on his face as he dragged the blade across his neck. I think the voices of Horath actually sold her some bullshit. I'm not sure if that's actually a thing. But if it's true, he got what he deserved. That's what I tell myself, and for the most part I believe it. I can't help but wonder what terrible things he did in the 5 years after he vanished, and what I might have prevented if he'd only been around to hear me the morning my mother died. Now you know what happened to my father. As I told you before, he killed himself, and that's it. Do you have any siblings? No, I was close to a boy in my village for a time, but his mother stopped letting me play with him when everyone realized what my powers were. That's the closest thing I ever had to a living sibling. A dour expression clouds her face. A living sibling? My brother died very young. I never knew him, so I hardly count him as a sibling. Life in the middle of nowhere is difficult. For a single child to survive, let alone more, is a testament to the parents. She looks at you for a time, her lips a thin line, her eyes grow red and tears form in her lids. Finally she nods slowly and breaks her silence. Sirin Loyalty 1. Do we already have that? Yeah, we do. I remember my mother talking about me getting a little brother. It wasn't long after I started singing and my powers started growing. She told me that soon it would be too hard for her to travel with me. Sirin, sweetie, she said, you'll have to go with your daddy. It wouldn't be good for the baby if I kept traveling like that. Maybe after your brother is out here with us, we can all travel together. Sirin looks out to the horizon, her voice breaking. You didn't like traveling with your father? No, all he wanted was the money. When we were on the road, he completely ignored me. I was simply something to earn rings with, a tool. The farmers in my village used their rakes and wagons. My father used my voice. Everyone wanted a songbird to sing for them, and they paid us so much money. So we went, but I didn't want to go without my mother. She was the only real comfort I had. When I was with her, I felt safe. Nothing could hurt me. There was a trip coming up, and I knew she wouldn't be going. I couldn't bear the thought of all those days in the care of my father. Her voice breaks again, and she closes her eyes. So I sang to my baby brother. I told him we were all waiting for him. I told him we needed to be a family, so we could travel together. I told him he should come out now. I don't know if I meant for it to happen, but I sang the words. No one can resist my voice. My mother's screams cut the song short, and the blood. It was everywhere. I was dragged from the room, but I don't remember who took me. I only remember staring at my foot for the rest of the afternoon. The pattern soaked into my shoe, the splatter across the tops of my toes. I couldn't bring myself to clean it off, just looked at it. How long had your mother been pregnant? Not long enough for my brother to survive. Maybe he could have, I don't know. The problem is, when I told him he had to come out, I didn't mean I wanted him out alive. I don't think he would have survived even if it was time for my mother to give birth. People came and went all day. There was a lot of crying, and nobody looked at me the same way after that. My mother told me that things like this happen all the time, but even at 5 I knew what I had done, and part of me was happy. I wanted my mother back, and I got her. She still loved me, she died protecting me, but I terrified her. Every time I opened my mouth, I could see her flinch, and after my brother died, she was never around when I sang. She couldn't bear to watch me. Let's talk about something else. That's actually horrifying. So she basically needs to be around people that are strong enough to not be turned by her singing. So like Archons, Fatebinders, very powerful people. How long have you been practicing magic? Always. I've no memory of being without the power. It has been my driving force, and I'm who I am because of it. Every defining moment of my life is because of my voice and the power behind it. I have become what it made me, and it is what I have done with it. Okay. Tell me about your time with the voices of Horath. This should be interesting. What do you want to know? How did you meet Horath? I met him when I was unceremoniously dumped on its doorstep by Kyros. All I felt toward it since the moment I saw it was sheer hatred. Interesting that she always says it. A lot of other people in the Scarlet Chorus actually say he or them or something, but she always says just it. It's a thing. When one person tires of me, they just hand me off to another. I seem to be quite the handful. No one is truly prepared to deal with me, I suppose. I was its possession for 3 years, stuck doing what it wanted until you came along and started messing around with Kyros' plans. Why did Kyros give you to Horath? I made the mistake of trying my song on Kyros. Hilarious! I should have seen that one coming. Forgiveness isn't exactly in the Overlord's vocabulary. Interestingly enough, I think it almost worked. Can you imagine how differently things would have turned out if I'd had a little more practice? Holy crap! Yeah, it's gonna be difficult to keep a hold of her. I was brought out at one of the many lavish gatherings thrown at the palace. Kyros loved showing me off, you know, impressing the gathered elite. So I performed, I sang, I danced, I convinced people to join in. Then, in the middle of it all, I had a brilliant idea to work one more performance into the show, something that would be the ultimate end to the evening. I added a counterpoint to my song and directed it at Kyros. In it, I mentioned that it might be in everyone's best interest if Kyros ended up impaled on a sword. I honestly didn't think it would work, but why not try, right? It went as far Kyros unsheathing one of the Royal Guard's swords. But then everything stopped. I don't know why. It was probably me. I got too excited and lost my control. But whatever the reason, Kyros was suddenly out of my control and let out a terrible shout. Weren't you afraid of getting caught? Of course I was. But I've seen how the world works, especially Kyros' world. People don't live long, and when they're disposed of, it's violent and sudden. I figured I was dead anyway, so why not try to rid the world of a horrible threat? Really? You were trying to save the world? Fine, I was trying to save my own skin. Happy? I was 12, so forgive me if self-preservation was in the front of my mind. Oh look, a young lady who thinks of nothing but herself. Do you want to hear the story or not? Everyone stared, frozen by the yell echoing back at us. Kyros quickly recovered and gave the appearance of cheering us on, but I was convinced I was about to die. Interestingly, my execution never came. I finally realized I couldn't have been punished at the party, because Kyros would have to admit I had exerted my will onto the Overlord, and without a good reason to call for my death. I couldn't have been executed afterwards. I was the songbird. I did nothing but spread Kyros' will and gather the armies. Would you execute your best and most loved recruiting tool? So Kyros worked with Horath, and they gave me this helmet to bring me back in line. Then I was handed over to Horath, that monster, because it is the one thing in the world I cannot control. Present company excluded. Fatebinder. Right. Okay, so her working with Horath was actually punishment. Well, the headgear certainly does give her some character. You can't control him? I've been inside his mind time after time, and I've never been able to get a handle on what's going on in there. Every time I talk to it, I feel like a different person is talking to me. And every one of them wants something different. And one in particular wants something it's never, ever going to get. Wait a minute, what does he want? Come on, Fatebinder, you can't be that naive. I'm still a child, and I know about adult urgings, as one of my old teachers so clumsily put it. Somewhere inside that chaotic mind, I saw the most depraved and disturbing desires I've had the misfortune of feeling. No matter what Horath says to you, do not trust it. That will always end badly. Okay, what have you done for Horath? Now, if that isn't a question that goes right to the heart of the storm, I think you should ask me what it hasn't had me do, or at least try to make me do. Yeah, I would like to do that, why not? But I don't have the option, so let's talk about something else then. Tell me more about that headdress. It's the bane of my existence, and something that's incredibly painful to talk about. So why not? What does it do? Makes me impotent. Do you have any idea what it's like to have a hurricane raging inside you? To feel the gale crashing against you to be released, but only feel a gentle summer's breeze? Kyros and Horath made it just for me. If I attempt anything more powerful than a simple tune, it will kill me. Isn't that simply wonderful? Honestly, to be so terrified of a mere child. Why do you have it? I might have tried to kill Kyros once. He and Horath decided I posed too much of a threat, so they muzzled me. I was their attack dog, and they pulled out my teeth. You can hardly be surprised if the dog tries to bite you, if that's all you teach him to do. Why can't you simply take it off? Gee, Fatebinder, I never thought of that. Here, could you unclasp it for me so I can get out of it? Because I'll die if it isn't removed the proper way, you simpleton. Do you think I'd leave it on otherwise? If you can't take it off, why did you try to get me to remove it when we met? How can someone so powerful be so stupid? I knew you wouldn't be able to remove it. That's not what I was trying to do. You're a Fatebinder. You honestly think I was going to pass up the opportunity to try and control a Fatebinder? How do you know you'll die if you remove the helmet? Because I doubt Horath and Kyros would go through all the trouble just to play a trick on me. Something this subtle, elaborate and long-lasting isn't really their style. At least not Horath's. Plus, Horath told me the helmet would kill me if I removed it. And while it might be a lying monster, it loves telling the truth if the truth causes an extra bit of pain. You believe Horath? Maybe he's just toying with you. Have you tried removing it? I'm not going to risk my continued existence on a maybe. Plus, I already tried. When they first put it on me, I got one of the worst headaches I've ever had. So I'll leave it where it is for now. What would it take to remove it? Someone beating the information out of Horath or Kyros. They are the only ones who know how it was constructed and how it works. I may ask people to remove it, but I know they won't be able to. That's not going to stop me from trying though. Why the headdress? Why not use magic to gag you? They tried magic. It didn't really work. The problem is, spells can be broken. Counter spells can be found. Guards can be bribed. People can have accidents. Horath and Kyros are the only ones who know how to remove this without killing me. The answer is locked somewhere in Horath's insane and Kyros' currently not conveniently located heads. Right, let's talk about something else. I think we talked about everything here.
What do you need?
No! Not by a long shot. Alright then. Do you know anything about what's going on in the tiers? I know a great deal about what's going on here, considering I'm the root cause of at least half of it. What do you want to know? How long have you been here? Since the beginning of the occupation, Kyros wanted me out of sight, but still in use. So I was given to Horath. It used me to gather fodder for the chorus. What do you think about Tyranny? He makes me uncomfortable. There's nothing behind that mask. It's dark and empty. What do you mean? Everyone has a presence. It's how my magic works. I reach into them and convince their presence to do what I want. He has no presence. When I reached into him, there was nothing. It was bleak. I never want to feel that again. If you have to reach into someone's mind to control them, how did you influence entire armies to do what you want? I can't influence an army, but I can persuade them to feel the way I want them to. If I want to get someone to do a specific thing for me, I have to get inside their head, and that requires a lot more effort. No one can keep me out, but if they're aware of what I'm doing, I can't force them to do anything. At least not with this thing on my head. She knocks a hand against the helmet. Really, I don't know how it works. It just does. You might as well ask me where lightning comes from. I want to know about Kyros. What do you want to know? How did you come to work for Kyros? After my father betrayed me and got my mother killed, I was taken by Kyros' men. I honestly don't know where we went, other than it seemed to take forever to get there. Then I was put in school. It was a wonderful and horrible time. I learned how to control and maximize my power, but they underestimated my abilities, or overestimated theirs. I think it was more the latter than the former. They unleashed my true power. Did they believe I wouldn't try to run with it? They tried to train and mold me, and in that they succeeded. They also tried to brainwash and break me, and in that they failed spectacularly. But I was punished for it. Why were you punished? They assumed my abilities were exaggerated. They were powerful mages who had spent years training at their art. How could a little girl ever hope to rival their prowess? I grew tired of their condescension. I hated them for treating me like a child. Their rules, their discipline, their training, they killed my mother, and I would make them pay for it. One day I got bored in class. The teacher's droning voice was putting me to sleep in the afternoon heat. So I thought I'd have a little fun. He was distracted, and he let his defenses down. He didn't consider me a threat. How do you know his defenses were down? I can just feel it. If someone is alert or aware of what's going on, it's a lot harder to get inside, but I know when they're vulnerable. I know how to take advantage of the opening and climb right in. Go on. I started humming, nothing that would attract his attention, of course. A lullaby my mother sang to me. Fitting, I thought, to invade this man's mind with a song taught to me by the woman they destroyed. I could tell I had gotten inside him when he slowed down ever so slightly. I started singing wordlessly, standing, working in hand motions. They were completely unnecessary, but I had been trained to be a performer. Then I worked in my words. The window, I sang to him. Look, what's at the window? He turned, entranced, and stared outside, his mouth moving silently as he dreamed an answer to my question. What's out there? I asked him through my song. What could that be? I was elated. The fool had let himself alone and vulnerable, and this 8-year-old had dominated his mind. He walked to the window, intently staring at something I couldn't see. You made him jump, didn't you? Of course. I didn't mean for him to fall. He was looking out the window and reached up as if to touch whatever he was looking at, and before I could stop him, he was gone. It looked like he was trying to catch something as he fell from sight. I won't say I'm sorry he died. He was a horrible man, but I didn't mean to do it. However, I was elated. The taste of power was intoxicating. I didn't get to taste it again for a long time. How were you punished? They wanted to cut out my tongue. Even at 8, I didn't blame them. It's what I would have done, but Kyros said no, doing possibly the one kind act she ever did for me. Without the power of speech, I was essentially useless. So they muzzled me. They knew simply holding my mouth shut wasn't going to be sufficient. So they got creative. Using sage magic, they put my voice in stasis when I wasn't in class. I could go through the motions of speech, but nothing came out. Oh, did they take pleasure in it. Between classes they gave me chores. They berated me. They beat me. I was their slave. The only reason I lived was by Kyros' whim, but I was tortured by everyone else. There were at least 2 teachers in my classes after the incident, and I was always accompanied by 2 guards, both of whom had been deafened, so I couldn't affect them. I accidentally killed one man, and they were acting like I destroyed a realm. I suppose that's what they thought I'd do next, and who knows, maybe that's what I'm about to do. What was life like with Kyros? For several years, I was surrounded by people who would smile to my face and sneer when I turned away. They were supposed to be my mentors, my teachers, but all they did was resent me. They taught me to refine and control my voice. My power became more directed, more powerful, more subtle. I no longer needed to specifically say what I wanted people to do. I could just think what I wanted, how I felt, and the weaker the mind, the faster they would respond. It still required me to sing, or at the very least make music with my voice, but I could say one thing, but mean something else entirely, and the magic worked. Everything was done for Kyros' edification. They asked for signs of her power, and I was used to bring them about. People praised my name to the extent that was allowed, but if the focus of adoration ever truly pointed toward me, it was quickly stifled. I didn't see much of Kyros. She was busy taking care of her affairs, but I was never allowed to forget by whose power I was allowed to exist. I was paraded around like the new jewel, and since I had real power, it took a while for the luster to fade, but when I tarnished, I corroded through. And when I stopped being a pleasant distraction, I was passed off to rot to be forgotten. How long did you work for Kyros? 5 years. 2 years of dedicated training. 2 years with training interspersed with travel, performing miracles in Kyros' name. Then a year being his pet. Oh, that's a typo, I guess, because she's a she. What do you think of him? Her. Honestly, I didn't really think of him at all at first. Yeah, that's odd. Of her at all at first. If I wasn't getting daily reminders that she owned me and could have me killed at any time she wanted, I would have completely forgotten she existed. Don't misunderstand me. I despise her. It's because of her I don't have a family. It's because of her my mother is dead. It's because of her I am here instead of anywhere else. But as a child I was kept too busy to interact with her much. Oh, right, so I've seen this. I read it wrong. I'm sorry, I apologize. Wait a minute, you've called Kyros both him and her. Did I? How clumsy of me. Must have been a slip of the tongue. She smiles mischievously. Is Kyros a man or a woman? You really don't know, do you? That's fascinating. I assumed the Fatebinder would have been given an audience with him. Doesn't seem like she'd let you perform actions in his name without speaking to you. That's part of the mystique, isn't it? If your enemies don't know anything about you, how can they properly plan? So why would Kyros let anything out that he didn't want the world to know? Tell me, Sirin. No, a lady has to keep some secrets, and this is going to be mine. Feels good to have some power in this relationship. It's not going to matter once you defeat him anyway. She'll be gone. I wonder if I didn't pass a loyalty check. I gotta try that at some point later. That's really interesting. Very interesting. Let's talk about something else then. Okay, tell me about the Scarlet Chorus. If I never talk to another chorus member my entire life, I would consider it a success, no matter what else happens. She folds her arms across her chest and levels a steely gaze at you. What do you want to know? You weren't a member of the chorus? What? Absolutely not! The only reason I worked with them is because I was being forced to. Once Kyros had this monstrosity placed on my head, I really had no choice. I'm not powerful enough to force them to let me go, and they had the numbers to overwhelm me if I tried anything. So I did what I was told, until you showed up. What was it like working with them? Well, at first I was treated like a queen. I spent all my time recruiting, and let's be honest, the Scarlet Chorus isn't choosy, so it was easy to convince people to join. Toward the end, I actually started fearing for my life. With this thing on my head, I couldn't effectively control an entire army, so hobbling me was quite an intelligent thing for Kyros to do. If anyone had realized I couldn't hold all of them back, I would have been in big trouble. Your little stunt at Venrian's Well couldn't have come at a better time. What do you think of them? I'd have thought my look of disgust kind of answered that question, Fatebinder. They're a worthless, hopeless, disorganized bunch of savages who soon will tear themselves apart from the inside. The only time I ever had fun was when I got to cause chaos, like encouraging them to fight each other to prove their superiority. Thank you, by the way, for allowing that to continue for as long as it did. Yeah, I think I did that during the conquest. At the behest of Sirin, the Scarlet Chorus at the Vellum City occupied their time, engaging in murderous competition to choose the strongest leaders. He upheld the Chorus' right to choose their leaders in the manner that suited their values, and the right of the Archon to govern the army as she saw fit. That bumped us up to level 2 loyalty level. Okay, what's your opinion on their methods? They randomly grab anyone and anything they can get their hands on and hope they'll work if they beat them enough. Sounds like the makings of a fantastic army to me. I'm repulsed by them and everything they do. Horath is a disgusting excuse for a leader, and I look forward to the day I can watch the life drain from its insane eyes. Am I being clear enough for you, Fatebinder? Yeah, I guess so. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about Kyros again. Wait a minute. Did I? Is Kyros a man or a woman? Tell me. Yeah, she's not gonna do it. Interesting. Let's talk about something else then. What do you know about the Disfavored? I really don't know much about them, Fatebinder. I never got a chance to work with them, so I don't really think it'll be much help on this topic. What do you want to know? What do you think of Graven Ash? He seems capable enough. He's organized and truly seems to care about his men, contrary to practically everyone else I've met here. Have you seen them in action? Briefly, at a few of the battles during Kyros' conquest, but Horath liked to keep me locked up tight, so I never got a good look at them fighting. You never worked with them? Not directly. I've been used to inspire people occasionally, and the Disfavored were in those groups. But if you're looking for anything of merit from me on the Disfavored, I'm not going to be much use to you. Okay. What about the other groups in the tiers? What do you want my opinion on? Tell me about the Stonestalker tribe. Yeah, these are the beast men and women. Not even worthy of my attention. A beast is a beast, and you can't ever make an animal be anything more than what it is. That's rather racist. What do you want my opinion on? Tell me about the local rebel groups. What about the Vendrian Guard? Are they even still pertinent? After the events of Vendrian's Well, I would have thought no one would want to talk to them anymore. What about the Unbroken? Haven't had much exposure to them. Ash was intent on dealing with that problem, so they didn't ask for my help. Bronze Brotherhood? They're not the most helpful people, but they seem like they want what's best for Lethean's Crossing. Plus, it was a lot easier for me to recruit my own followers with them around. I didn't have to worry about anyone being taken by the Scarlet Chorus or killed by the Disfavored. Okay. Let's talk about something else. What about the Mage Guilds? Generally, I don't like throwing in with other mages. I have not had a good experience with them in the past, so I keep my distance. And they're so demanding. You ask them, very nicely I might add, how to cast a spell, and they insist they're not a charity, and they're not going to hand over their secrets out of the goodness of their heart. Right, like there was anything good about that one. And I didn't use my magic on him. That's gratitude for you. She trails off and gives you an intent look. Suddenly your head feels like it's too small for your brain. She closes your eyes and takes a breath, and the feeling dissipates. Tell me about the sages. I can't say I'm too happy with them, since it was their magic that bound my voice when I was a child, but they are an influential group with infinite knowledge. At least they were. Can you imagine how powerful you could become if you had access to their collections? Tell me about the Earthshakers. Incredibly powerful, but strangely focused in their studies. Why would you want to pour your energy into one thing? Branch out. The magic they're missing out on is incredible. Okay, the Forgebound. The group that Kyros used to make my hobble. The less I have to think about them, the better. They might be good craftsmen, but unless they craft me a way out of this prison, I'll let you deal with them. Thank you. Right, okay. Okay.
What do you need?
Okay. I can go for this one now. Sirin Loyalty 2. You have a way with words, Sirin. Were you instructed on how to speak with others? Of course, one of the only good things that came out of my time with Kyros was my education. My teachers insisted I be trained on the proper way to speak with the royal court. I was frequently mistaken for someone older, so I think I got away with a lot more than I could have otherwise. For all their failings, they made sure I was properly educated. My favorite class was learning how to talk people into doing what you wanted without using magic. Can you believe that? Why in the world would you risk it? But it was a fascinating subject. Could you teach me some tricks? Certainly, Fatebinder. I don't remember how much of my training I'll remember, but I'm sure I could help you out. She leans close, and in the softest of caresses, her lips brush your ear. I gain some subterfuge skills. Words or sound indiscriminate to the human ear, a language not meant to be understood by any but the Archon of Song, beyond the breadth of discernment, but inescapably compelling, binding, gut-wrenchingly painful on a single lilt, then euphorically fulfilling a mere intone later. You blink and realize the muzzy, spine-tingling murmuring in your ear has fallen silent. Sirin draws back with a satisfied sigh, beaming at you, and the perfect image of a sigil, the invocation of her name, brands itself into the depths of your mind. I wonder if I can use her sigil now. Okay. What do you think about your travel companions?
Are you trading in gossip now, Fatebinder? Or are you collecting information to use against us?
She arches her eyebrows inquisitively.
What do you want to know about?
Tell me about Beric.
The walking ring pile? Let's hope you never have to go anywhere unnoticed. There's nothing particularly wrong with him, I suppose, but he doesn't seem overly bright. I mean, what kind of idiot do you have to be if you can't even take off your armor? Maybe he's pretty, but wrapped in that getup, who can tell?
She looks at Beric, smiles, waves, and blows him a kiss.
What was that you said? I couldn't quite hear you.
Beric grunts, turning to face Sirin.
It's okay, Beric. I didn't say anything about anyone important.
She speaks slowly and deliberately, patting him gently on the shoulder. She then puts her hand to mouth, suppressing a small giggle.
I'll admit he can handle himself in a fight, but he could use a little more up here.
She taps the side of her head. Tell me about Ebb.
She's got some power in there, that's for sure. And as long as I'm crippled, I will, begrudgingly mind you, admit she could probably win if we were pitted against each other.
Okay.
Although I'm more than happy to give her a try. Are you game, Ebb? Think you could take me out?
I'm sorry, sweetie, I'm confused. Are you offering me a duel or something a little more down and dirty?
Ebb winks at Sirin, who turns deep scarlet and looks away. Yeah, very nice. The writers here certainly don't pull any punches. I like it.
You know what I meant.
Sirin puts a hand on her headdress and looks at Ebb, chewing on the corners of her mouth.
Oh, don't worry, dear. You're far too young for me. I like someone with a little wear and tear on them, and not just up here.
She puts her hands on her head and winks again.
Though I suppose I should watch myself around her. You never know how people will react to a challenge.
Tell me about Lantry.
I'm jealous of him. I've heard so much about the Vellum Citadel, and he actually got to see it before all the unpleasantness.
She trails off, a sour expression on her face, her wiggling fingers miming tiny explosions.
Although not all sages are necessarily worthy of praise. Some are a little overly fond of excesses, of one kind or another.
She arches an eyebrow. Okay. I guess he would have had something to say if I asked her that. Maybe I'll do that later. Tell me about Verse.
That bitch? I'd walk her off the spire if I knew I could get away with it. I don't know why you even waste your time with her. She's rude, violent, base, impatient, and entirely pointless. You should keep much better company, Fatebinder. You asked me what I thought. I can't help it if the facts are painful to swallow.
She sighs and shrugs. Okay, let's talk
What do
about
you
something
need?
else. What do you think of the state of the world? What is there to say? Kyros' two major leaders can't stop themselves or their armies from fighting like a bunch of children. Neither of them seem capable of dealing with the rebels that are taking them down, which, as far as I'm concerned, is how it should be. The less of the tiers infected by Kyros, the better. If we could eliminate the armies entirely, I would consider that a true victory. Tell me what you know about edicts. Anything I say would be a wild guess. That's why I'm with you. You seem to have a connection to the power of this land, far beyond anything an Archon is capable of. It intrigues me. I want to learn what it is and harness it. Sadly, I don't have the magic needed to enact or break an edict. At least in my current state. Maybe if you got this helmet off my head. She gives you a knowing stare. I would actually remove it. I'd remove it if I could. Just because escape is futile doesn't mean the prisoner is going to give up trying. Doesn't hurt to ask. She holds up her hands. You're an Archon. You must know something about Edict Sirin. You'd think that, wouldn't you? With all my training and education, Kyros left a very big void in it all. Almost like it was intentional. Okay.
What do you need?
I think we're done with her. Doesn't look like we actually got her core or her sigil. Sigil of Terratus, Force, Lightning, Frost, Fire, Illusion, Vigor, and Life. No, we don't have her sigil, so that's kind of a shame. But yeah, I'm gonna end it here. Thank you very much for watching this bonus episode. If you enjoyed it, leave a like by all means, and I hope you join me for the rest of the playthrough in one of the future episodes. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.